Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it might be, wherever you're at. This is JD Moonin coming at you guys with another Redneck Philosopher podcast. So I'm happy to say that we're getting back into politics. Not just politics, but more getting into, I guess you could say, being an activist, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in this country that, quite frankly, we need to talk about. We need to get out there in the open and have a discussion. One of the main ones that we need to talk about is how a two-party system doesn't work. It hasn't been working for a long time. And I know I'm not the only person here looking around and going, we have a problem. So now effectively, because of what the Democrats did to themselves when they shot themselves in the foot by basically saying, hey, you're not going to choose who you're going to vote for if you're a Democrat. We're going to choose for you. We're going to tell you who you're voting for, and that's what you're going to vote. You know, that's what they did with Kamala Harris. So I had somebody post on on one of my Facebook profiles. They said, I'm surprised that you're not. I'm surprised to not see you more active this election season. And what I have to say to that is the reason why I wasn't active this season is because, one, I've been through a lot of family stuff. Pardon me. We you know, my grandmother passed away. For any of you guys who've been watching my channel for any period of time, my grandmother's very, very close to me. I and her were very close. She was one of my best friends, man, and her passing was devastating. It was absolutely devastating to me. Now, with that said, my girlfriend and I also we split. That was really big. Made me very upset. And I'm still not over it by any means. I haven't been seeing anybody or anything like that. I've got no intention of seeing anybody right now. It's just I really put everything I had into that relationship. I spent 7 years alone, as you guys know, before about 7 years. I actually was at the point where I wasn't even sleeping with anybody. Okay, and so it was extremely devastating to me, because I felt like I knew exactly what I wanted. You know, I spent a lot of time alone, kind of trying to understand what I needed in a partner and things like that. And so to see all of those things that I wanted in somebody, you know, finally pull the trigger and get into a relationship with somebody, and then, you know, basically be told, I'm over this, I'm not doing this anymore, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, just the reasoning just was not adequate, in my opinion. It was just because there was no reasoning. It was just literally I got upset because something they did, and then they proceeded to break up with me because I told them I was upset with them. You know, and the other thing is too, guys, is you know, I've noticed that narcissism in this country has just gotten really out of hand. I don't know if that's a problem with social media or what. I mean, it's like we have all these people now that have this inflated sense of self. They've lost touch with reality almost, you know? Yeah, that's right. It's a Starbucks cup. There's some good coffee, by the way, with some Kahula creamer. Okay, so if we're gonna do it right, we're gonna do it with Kahula creamer. No, there's no alcohol. I actually quit drinking, by the way. So I think I said that on a prior video. I have quit drinking. I still not drinking anymore. Very proud of myself, by the way. Quit smoking cigarettes completely. It's been almost 5 years now, so doing good. Still do the e-cigarette though, but no more cigarettes. Anyways, a lot of good changes, you know, I've done in my life. Anyways, so, you know, when you just put everything you have into something and, you get this very narcissistic response, and it's just like, whoa, you know. That's how it was for me. It just kind of took me by surprise, and because of how much I went through to stay with her, how much I supported her, and things like that, I was very, very upset when it wasn't reciprocated. Okay, when I needed her, when I needed support, when, and I'm not talking about financial support, just financial support. I mean, I financially supported her, but I wasn't even asking her to financially support me. What I was asking was I needed support emotionally. I mean, my grandmother just died, you know. I mean, we had just the day that all this crazy stuff went down. I mean, we would just put her in the ground, you know. And so, that being said, I mean, I think it's quite easy to understand how I would be so hurt, or why it would take me so long to recover. And then shortly after that, when after my grandmother died, I went down to my father's house, and I stayed out on his yacht for, I don't know, about 3 months. I really took some time. I was just very, I hope you guys like the robe, by the way. It's, it's purple. It's my Hugh Hefner robe with the little, with a little fake fur around the neck and everything. Looking good, looking classy with my Starbucks cup. Look totally bougie. But anyways, I just had to do a lot of soul searching, and I was very just like, what's the word I'm looking for? I was just scatterbrained. It's like I had a cloud in my head, man. I couldn't. I was so hazy. I couldn't really think right. I didn't really. It's kind of like I looked at everything and I was like, wow, this is a bad dream. It's almost like pinch me and wake me up kind of thing. Because it's just the way everything happened. It's like I lost everything at one time. I lost my home. I lost my grandmother. I lost my girlfriend. I lost, I just lost my job, to discrimination and everything, which I want to touch base on that too. We're going to talk about that in this podcast today. And it was very eye-opening. Here I am at 35. I just turned 35, by the way. My birthday was in October. And, when I hit 35 and all this stuff happened, just recently, it really kind of just opened my eyes to my own mortality, for one. Recognizing and understanding that we're all going to die, no matter what. None of us are guaranteed any time. Any of us can drop at any time. We can get sick with anything. We can, die from a heart attack. Right after my grandmother passed away, I'm down at my dad's. The next thing I know, I'm going with him up to Dallas. We're going to go help him. I went to go help him with his dad. Cause come to find out, his dad just came down with dementia. And I mean, it was sad, so I go over there, I help him. Finally, we get him in the car. I take them both back down to Houston, and, and then he ends up staying down there. Well, then after I leave, come to find out, like, his dad got out of the house and was like running off, saying, I'm going home. And he like goes and runs over the street, almost like runs out into oncoming traffic, almost pushed my dad out into oncoming traffic. I mean, it was a nightmare for them, and next thing I know, my here we go. My grandfather's in the hospital. And he had multiple strokes, and, now he's never going back to his house, I mean, so it's just like, and then right after that, then a guy that I used to work with at my stepdad's shop, he dies at my age, 36, and they still, we have no information on what he died from, and then right after that, an old friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, he was a record driver for one of the record services that we used when I worked over at my dad's, and a number of years ago, and he really helped me through my divorce and stuff. Well, then he just dropped dead. And that's not including, like, we had another good friend of mine that I used to work with at my dad's shop. He died just a couple of years ago. One of my dad's best friends died a couple of years ago, and so it's just been a lot of death, Uh, and I guess whenever you see that, it's just very eye opening. Um, and I think one of the things I had to deal with was I felt like my time was wasted, and that was very upsetting for me, because I already recognized that I'm starting to get older, you know, um, and I had always wanted a family, have children maybe, and because I had taken some time alone to be alone when I was young, in my mid 20s. I kind of like missed out on the part of my life where, like, I don't know. I guess I really missed out on it so far. But like, I knew that I had put off a lot of my childbearing years, if you will, um, to find myself. And I mean, when you start getting older, you start getting fearful of having children later. I mean, I'm at that age now where I'm pushing it. Okay, I mean, one of my brothers just had a child. He's 40, and that's like way too old. I mean, when his daughter's 20, he's gonna be 60. I mean, 60 is. I mean, I know we're living at, like, our average is 80, but that's an average. I mean, and from my experience, I've seen a lot of people die in their 60s. Um, and so it's just kind of like, you're really looking at it going, man, I'm like running out of time. And that's kind of a fear of mine, especially at 35, is if I do want to have children. I mean, I don't know yet. I haven't met anybody and spent time in a relationship with them long enough to talk about it with them and really make that decision. Because it's not a decision I'm going to make by myself. I mean, I'm like, my aunt did. She went and got artificially inseminated and all that. And had my cousin, but I don't want to do that. I feel like that's just, I know I could always adopt, but I mean, it's not the same thing. Um, I don't know. It's just something I've been really throwing around in my head, like, man, But then you deal with the side, like, I don't want to go date right now because women of today, man. I mean, they freaking scare me, dude. Especially after what I just dealt with. My experience with my ex-wife, the girlfriends after her. I mean, I've just had nothing but a lot of, like, pretty bad relationships. Honestly, like, one of my most stable relationships was like a fling, and it was like stable. But like every long-term relationship I've had, I just feel like, I mean, one that I thought was stable, she ended up leaving me for like a 30-something-year-old dude. I mean, it's just like, whoa. I've been cheated on a lot and stuff like that, and so it's just like, you really, really kind of get to the point where you're like, man, like, I don't think I'm gonna have kids. I haven't. It's just women today, man. I don't know. I don't know what people's obsession is with this throwaway culture, and I feel like we've come into that, and I feel like it's gotten so bad now that everything's so disposable that now people are. And I'm just here to remind everybody that people are not disposable. They're not. I mean, every person is unique. Every person's different. There's none of us are the same. Not one of us at all. And that's the beauty of the human condition, right? Is that each person is their own person. We have a lot of robots and a lot of copycats, people that try and be somebody else, try and be this and that, and they're not happy when they do, or if they think they're happy, it's a false sense of happiness. I think most people kind of realize that when they hit their 30s. But it's just like, we're all good at something, no matter who we are. Every one of us brings something to the table, and we all affect each other in some way. And just to watch people just throw others away like that, it really just makes me go, damn, I feel like somebody needs to get on a soapbox and tell everybody, like, when are y'all going to start self-reflecting? Like, when are you going to start looking at yourself going, wow, what's wrong with me? You know, why would I do something like that to another person? And then, you know, what's going to happen when it's done to you? You know what I mean? Eventually, if like we're all doing that, like eventually we're just going to become this, we're not going to have a race anymore, really. Like, I mean, the way that humanity's going, it's just like, sometimes I feel like, would it be such a bad thing if we get wiped out? I mean, the way everybody is selfish and nobody cares about anybody else, I mean, who's going to care? Right? Unless it's them. So, I mean, really the only thing I'm seeing is like, then, I mean, if we did knock ourselves out, like, we just got rid of a lot of people that only cared about themselves. So, like, what's the point? You know, who cares? And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I mean, it's just like, the more I see social media and like how everybody needs everybody's, you know, validation to like live, and it's like, dude, fuck all that, man. Like, I'm perfectly comfortable in my own skin. I don't need to be like anybody else. I don't want to be like anybody else. I don't need to control anybody. I don't care about any of that. You know, which leads me to my next point. Unfortunately, I've come to realize like why I even got into this stuff anyways. Like, why did I even start making videos of me talking online? You know, I mean, because before it was me teaching people how to play a video game, and now it's become a little bit more personal. Like, because I'm seeing the way the country's going, and because I'm seeing the way society is going, like, I feel like I have to get into politics. I feel like I have to go run for office, you know, and I still plan on doing that. You know, I had to take some time because, you know, my family and I had some personal growth I had to go through before I could get back out there and start working on my climb in politics. I mean, we need another party. You know, this two-party system isn't working. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, like, I find myself having to vote Republican a lot just because they're the ones who aren't taking my rights away left and right. But then, you know, on the flip side, you know, yes, I agree with them getting rid of Roe versus Wade, but that's because I understand the bigger picture, and I understand the precedents that sets, right? And it's going to eventually be taken advantage of if it wouldn't have been overturned. And unfortunately, with the way our politics have gotten so cutthroat, I think that the time that that somebody was going to use that and learn how to weaponize that Supreme Court, because it's not weaponized right now. Everybody thinks that the Supreme Court is weaponized. No, it's not. The Supreme Court right now is doing its job. Okay, and like everybody's like, oh, you know, especially my dad, he's like, oh, the Supreme Court's just, it's so out of balance. It's like, no, actually, it's not. The Supreme Court should be conservative, because the whole point of a Supreme Court is to define words in law. So it's essentially, it's there to make sure that nothing in the law can be taken advantage of, and to make sure that every person who's doing a lawsuit is actually following the law and they're not taking advantage of the law or breaking the law. You know, like, that's the whole point of our Supreme Court. It's to be the decision maker on the law when there's a gray area. And that's why it's important that they're conservative, because conservatism is important to a high extent, really. You know, I mean, because there are morals and guidelines which make this country great, and why everybody wants to come here. And a lot of that has to do with our court. You know, our Supreme Court makes all that possible. You know, and it also, like, I mean, people have to understand that Roe v. Wade set the precedence for the Supreme Court to create not only a law, but a right. And that's very dangerous, especially in our current political climate. Because when you have people who are just ruthless, who are just lying, who will do anything they can to get into power. I mean, look at Biden. You know, but dude, nobody wanted Biden as a friggin' president, dude. I'm sorry, there was fraud. Okay, I made $62,000 in a month because I showed the fraud. Okay, all that footage is still on my channel. Okay, if you don't believe me, go look at it. It's there. I'm tired of people trying to act like there was no fraud. The 2020 election was stolen. It was, you know, and I'm sorry if you have a personal vendetta with Trump, okay? Trump's not a bad, he's not a bad president. He might not, I mean, he might not be everybody's cup of tea. I mean, sometimes like he says some really dumb stuff, but I mean, honestly, actually now he looks pretty humbled to me, if you ask me. I mean, considering everything in the world has attacked him and he's still there. That's what happened to me. You know, I got everything in the world that I could have possibly have dreamed of turned on me and attacked me. And I'm not evil. I'm not bad, but there's people out there that will say I am. There's people out there that'll tell you, "Oh man, screw that guy, dude. He's a dick," you know, or he's a racist or whatever, dude. I'm a bigot, or you know. And let me be clear, I'm not any one of those things. Okay. What's funny about the whole Trump situation is you know, I really do believe that Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. You know, and I have to remind everybody that it was brought on by the media. Okay? I mean, except for like the one exclusion, which is my father, who likes to tell me about how he got screwed over by Trump. But whenever I tell him the evidence that, you know, the state of New York was supposed to be paying Trump for the work that he was doing at that time in the 80s, and that's why he didn't get paid because, I don't know, the state of New York was bankrupt. And then they tried not to pay Trump. And so when that happened, Trump couldn't pay contractors. And so there's a whole documentary about this. And I tried to tell my dad about that. And he just, you know, blah, 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 blah. I'm just a blah, 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 you know, whatever. You know, I mean, it's like, dude, I am not a party line person. As a matter of fact, I want to make a new party. I want to see a third party because Democrats, you know, like who would I run for if I went into office? You know, I mean, you know, like when you look at Trump, like Trump had to run independent, but the Republicans just took him because they knew they were going to lose all the vote. You know, we haven't had a third party in this country for like 100 years or more, and we used to have a bunch of different parties. And you know, like I'm a libertarian. I believe in small government. I believe in personal rights and freedoms. You know, and I'm sorry, like if you don't like the way somebody's talking, then you can choose to walk off. You know what I mean? You don't have to stand there and listen to them. I really don't like cancel culture, and I feel like that's everywhere. You know, I've been canceled multiple times, and I'm not like some alt-right crazy dude like everybody tried to make me out to be when I had an American flag with a Confederate battle flag on half of it, right? When I had that, I was being called all kinds of stuff. And that was the whole point of me having the flag up behind me, was because I wanted to prove that point. And the point was that nobody knew anything about the history of the Confederate battle flag. They have no idea. Everybody thinks it's racist. It had nothing to do with racism at all. That's people not understanding the history of slavery. You know, there's a reason why. I mean, when you go look at our founding fathers, you know, when I was in college, in my history class, I wrote a paper on, you know, Sam Adams, which is my absolute favorite founding father. When him and his wife were sending letters back and forth, they were discussing women's freedom, women's rights, and she went on to talk about that, and he said that there is absolutely no way he could even consider trying to do women's rights at that time because of the fragility of the country at the time. He said it is so fragile right now that they will not even be able to talk about ending of slavery, which every founding father knew was morally wrong. Okay. However, it went on to be protected by the Constitution for 100 years thereafter. And the reason why that was because they knew it would cause a war. And the reason why it's going to cause a war is because you're talking about a time when there was no John Deere tractors, okay? The cotton gin wasn't even thought of yet. And they needed people to work the fields. But you know, I mean, the amount of money that somebody's going to ask to take that job, when you look at it, it's just, that was how agrarian economies worked, is they had slaves. That's been all the way since the beginning of recorded history, you know, in not only Europe, but in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, you know. And so boom. And then the other thing is that whenever you try and get rid of slavery and you tell them that they have to free their slaves, what you have to also keep in mind is that's property. That would be like walking over to somebody's house and telling them, hey, you have to give me this house because the president said so. Or you have to vacate this house, and you have to let anybody that wants to sleep here also. Or you don't have to vacate. You can stay here, but anybody else who wants to sleep in this house can also sleep in this house. It's somewhere along those lines. That's what Emancipation Proclamation did. It took your property and set it free. That'd be like somebody coming and taking your car because you had to let it be free so anybody could drive it. And that being said, like that's what that was. That was what freeing the slaves did. And so people just don't understand that. They just don't get it because slavery's been abolished for so long. And so they get easily swayed by these bullshit talking points like the 1619 Project. Same thing with the Native Americans. Look, if there are any Native Americans that follow my channel, look, I'm sorry, but you guys lost a war. Okay. It's not my fault, and it's not anybody else's fault that's alive that you guys decided to fight against us with the French. Okay. You're lucky you got reserves. I'm being honest here. You're lucky you got your Indian reserves. Because anywhere else in history, we don't see that. No, did Rome ever go over to somebody and stamp them out and take over their stuff and then give them a reserve? No, hell no, they didn't. No, they walked in, they said, hey, you're going to pay us a tax or you're going to all die. Which one's it going to be? That's how it went. That's called war. And honestly, people forget that, like, I love it whenever people try and say that, oh, we came over here and raped all the women and all this and that. And no, that was not us. We were England. Okay. That was the Spanish that did that. That's why everybody in Mexico speaks Spanish in Central America. That's because the conquistadors raped and pillaged down there, not up here. Okay. Where everybody speaks English up here and some French in some places. That's what people just don't understand. And it's because they don't understand their history, and maybe that's a problem with the schools. I don't know. All I know is that something needs to be done. And I can't rely on our our current political heads. I don't think that they have any of our interests in mind. They don't give a shit about any of us. And that really bothers me. And anybody out there who's not bothered, might I bother you and say you should get bothered because this is what's being left behind for your children. This is why legacy is so important. And quite frankly, even if Trump is, let's say he's kind of maniac in his own right, okay? Very prideful, very boastful man. I'll tell you what, a man who wants to leave his legacy behind and be recognized as one of the greatest presidents means that man's probably going to get up in there and do a good job. But somebody who just wants to be president and who's willing to steal an election to do that, you should be definitely questioning that person. As a matter of fact, the person should go to prison. Okay? He should die there, not at his house, in prison with his wife. Okay? Because what they did in 2020 was wrong. And I can't believe there's any Democrats left. After them looking at you going, oh, you're going to vote for Kamala Harris? I would have been like, excuse me? I'm going to vote for who? No. There was no reason why the Democrats didn't have a primary. No reason. And their party was too stupid to stand up and say, what the hell are we doing? So, I guess you get what you pay for. So, but now I've come back into myself. I'm feeling great, feeling good again. Now I'm embarking on my long road to leadership. It's time for me to get ready to run for office. I think I'm going to start marching to that beat of that drum. There's a lot of stuff going on in this country that I just don't agree with. And, notably my state too, man. Look, I understand how everybody feels about abortion. I don't agree with it personally, and I would flip shit if a woman I was with, you know, was going to abort one of my children. Okay, I would go nuts over it. But now I do recognize that there are some people who get raped. You know, like that incident that we saw here in Texas recently, where a woman, if I remember correctly, I think a woman had died. Okay, because she couldn't get a procedure to get the baby, you know, basically removed before it killed her. You know, when I look at like my ex-wife, you know, her first child was a stillborn. Okay, and that was a procedure that was done. That baby had two very, very rare illnesses. One in half a million children get, and the other one in a million. And if she wouldn't have had that procedure, she would not be here today. And so if they're not allowing that procedure to happen now, based on some religious dogma, I'm sorry, your dogma, there's separation of church and state for a reason, okay? Because dogma is not healthy. It's not good. And there is a need in some cases for abortion. I understand that. I also understand too, because as a philosopher, naturally, I'm going to look at all aspects of a situation, and I'm going to go, okay, wait a minute. So how good is our foster system? How good, if these children are going to become orphans, how good is their life going to be? You know, is that really good for the child to force a parent to keep a child they don't want? You know, I mean, I know what it's like to not be wanted by a parent. I know what it's like to see other children who weren't wanted by their parents. You know, I mean, my nieces are now nephews. You know, I'm sorry, but people going from male to female or female to male, you know, after they were already born, whatever sex they were, that's not healthy. That's an illness. You know, I mean, if you're gay, you're gay, right? But if you were born with a penis, you're a man. If you were born with a vagina, you're a woman. And just because your preference might be you like men or you like women or you're bisexual or you like to wear women's clothing does not change that fact. Okay? If you get a sex change, does not change that fact. You know, I mean, the way that, like, when you look at a woman's back, the way it arches in and a man's doesn't, you can't change that fact. Even if you turn into a man, you still got that arch, honey. You know, and so that's my whole point is like, I mean, the foster system doesn't work. CPS doesn't work. You know, so why would you get rid of abortions when the system that you're going to have to utilize isn't even ready for it? You know, I mean, it's just dumb stuff. Like, I just feel like in a lot of cases, you know, not everything's thought about, you know, and guys, we need to think about all aspects of a problem instead of just one or whatever our dogma or whatever we think God wants. Okay. Any person out there who tells me what God wants, okay, has no fucking idea what they're talking about. Okay. Because not one person alive is God. They are God, but they're not God, right? And it goes to, we'll get into my philosophy about that way later. I've got a very complicated belief system. But the Bible, it was translated by men. It was written by men. And they left a lot of stuff out too. I'm sorry, it was built for control. That's what it was built for. Now, do I derive a lot of my moral compass from Christianity? Absolutely. I was born and raised in the church. Okay? So I know better than anybody about Christianity. But I've got a personal relationship with God. You know, not the Christian God, not the Jewish God, not the Islamic God, not the Hindu God, with God. With God. I can never comprehend God while I'm in this form, and I know that. So I'm never going to try. All I'll do is accept his guidance. in the direction that he's taking me to go. You know, he's given me a gift about being on the microphone, and so here I am. I'm going to utilize it. You know, I want to also talk about, you know, corporate peoplehood. That's getting way out of control. You know, I mean, my recent experience working for another company, and I'm never going to go work for another company again because of this. You know, this is the third time I've been discriminated against in my lifetime. And, you know, I know it happens to so many people. And I'm just one of those people. I'm fighting back. I'm taking it to them, you know, and I was an activist before I got with my ex, before my grandmother got sick. And, you know, now that's all said and done, I'm going back to being an activist because there's so much injustice in this world, and it's time to fight back. And we all need to fight back. Every one of us. You know, I mean, this isn't just my life I'm fighting for. It's everybody's, man. You know, I mean, I see people complaining and bitching about the way that things are now. You know, jobs not being easy to come by. Corporations taking advantage of people. Wages being too low. You know, everything costs too much. Blah, blah, blah. But I don't see anybody getting up to do anything. And then the one man that did, everybody wanted to jump on him and tell him he's a piece of shit. Because there was a video of him from, you know, 40 years ago saying grab him by the pussy. Like, give me a break. Okay? Like, every person alive has been a pervert at some point in their fucking life. Okay? I'm sorry. You know, I don't care who you are. Okay? We all have interest in somebody sexually. Every person alive has. And if you haven't, you should probably go to the doctor. Because you probably got a bigger health problem. You know, and it's astonishing to me how I watched that man go from being the most favored man one of the most favored people in the country to being the biggest piece of shit in the country, seemingly like it was overnight. And that's why I got in to doing what I was doing in 2020. You know, and here I am. I got shut down by YouTube. I went and I was like, all right, you know, I went and I did all this work, helped the FBI, you know, take down some bad groups, man. Take some bad people, some child molesters and stuff. And the next thing I know, you know, here I am. I start facing all kinds of bullshit. My girlfriend throws me to jail on false harassment accusations. You know, I wasn't harassing her. I was being enticed. And on top of that, her shit was still in my house. You know, I go to jail. I had to fight that. I fought that for almost a year. The amount of money it costed me. And it wasn't even my lawyer who got me off. You know, I was called a liar. My family turned on me at one point, and here I am. I was taking care of my grandmother. You know, I got accused of stealing from my grandmother, which I didn't do. I beat that too. There was an Adult Protective Services investigation against me. Out of nowhere, I just came under fire. And I was doing nothing wrong. I was doing everything right. And then everybody. You know, I mean, I remember I started reading tarot at one point. I didn't start reading. I was like reading a lot of tarot during a bipolar episode at that time. And I remember I looked at my mom and I said, everybody is going to turn on me. I said, you included. And she goes, oh, no, I'm never going to. I said, yes, you will. Because that's what I got out of the cards. That's what I heard. And then when everybody did, I looked at my mom and I said, I told you were going to do that. And she looks at me and she goes, all right, so what do we do? I was like, let's get to work. You know, and it was just because I was under fire and I was innocent. And, you know, it's like everybody thought I'd become a thief or something, or like some piece of shit. I'm a moral man. I always have been. I'll give you the shirt off my back. You know, I don't steal. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't do that stuff. But yet I was being accused of it left and right by everybody. You know, that's one of the reasons why it took me so long to start making content again. You know, I had so much chaos in my life and I didn't know why. You know, it's like as though I was being tested by the universe or something for what I was about to do. I guess this for when I was going to go get into politics. You know, well, here I am. You know, here I am. I'm back. I'm going to blow this thing out of water this time. And there isn't a single fucking company or corporation that's going to stand in my fucking way this time. I will knock every one of them down. And I'm going to start with Accenture. I'm going to show the whole world what these pieces of shit do. What Accenture did to me was wrong. Not only did they do it to me, but they did it to my girlfriend. You know, there's a lot of times where my girlfriend, you know, she would just be like, you know, oh yeah, there's always something wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. When it came to my money, I was hemorrhaging money at one point. I went on a medical leave. They didn't pay me. Per our contract, they were supposed to pay me my full wage for up to 180 days. I was out of work for 90 days, and they didn't pay me until nearly a month and a half after my return to work. And that was after I had to go to the EEOC. For those of you who don't know what the EEOC is, that's the Equal Opportunity Employment. I'm sorry, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That's the name of the EEOC. They gave me a writ to sue, and so I am filing a lawsuit. I have a lawyer that's on top of it now. You know, anybody who's watching this video, you know, I want you guys to please spread the word about this lawsuit, because, you know, one of the things I know is that there's this thing called trial by media. That's a real thing. It's a documentary on Netflix, actually. But the court of public opinion is very important. And it's time we take down corporations like Accenture anyways. Or at least shine the light on what they do. You know, one of the things that I found very interesting about Accenture was they'll look at you and go, oh, we're so inclusive. Oh, we're the best company to work for if you're a woman, if you have mental illness, blah, blah, blah. That's all bullshit, okay? One, my girlfriend was a single mom, okay? What'd they do to her? She was on, you know, she was doing fraud for a big tech company through Accenture. And then what'd they do? They just lost the contract because... What do you know? There was a lawsuit against Google, and I'm guessing Google probably blamed Accenture for it because I believe it was an Accenture employee. I ended up getting a paycheck or a check out of it out of nowhere that I wasn't expecting. But so apparently she set up a class action lawsuit in California where they took him down for something to do with the content. We all got a check. Okay. And what's interesting is then they lost the contract, right? Accenture lost the contract right after that. Well, so when they lost that contract, they also lost another contract, and my girlfriend was one of those people on that contract. Well, so what they do, she was working nights. She was making like $21-something an hour, and then out of nowhere, they told her, oh, hey, by the way, you're working mornings now. You're on this contract, and you only make 16. That's illegal. You can't do that. Well, that's what they did, and it sent her off into an episode, you know, and you know, and then me, here I am. I'm being targeted and discriminated against at work. I mean, I was literally their best employee on the floor when I was there. From the time I got out of training until the time, you know, I went on my medical leave and stuff, I was literally number one out of every. I literally was running laps around their vetted agents. I mean, I've been in that industry for 10 years. I knew it like the back of my hand. You know, you had me had me looking at a biller, and then you had me doing credentialing. I can do that in my sleep, baby. You know, I mean, that stuff's that's computer 101. You know, that's easy stuff. And I was on top of it. You know, I ended up saving them a probably billion-dollar lawsuit that they were going to end up getting from this friggin' hospital. Whenever I found that somebody had done credentialing wrong, and they kept just throwing it to the side, not doing anything about it, and they owed this hospital, I mean, we're talking like $5 million. And it had been a year. I was like, whoa. And so immediately I went there, I found the problem. There was a problem with the biller, and it went to so many agents before me over the year prior, and nobody dug into it like they needed to. I went and I found out it was a problem with our biller, and then come to find out it was a problem with the people who were literally coding it into our system once we got the claims and stuff. And I sent that off to my boss. Man, they got that taken care of. I got a bunch of accolades for it. You know, like I was just and I found that stuff like that. You know, it was from prior experience. I was just good at what I did. I'm good with numbers. I'm good at looking at bills and finding a problem. And, then I had, like my grandmother's illness got significantly worse. And, I started getting very depressed. I was the one, I had to take her car from her. I had to take her checkbook from her, when I woke up one morning and there was a notification that she had went negative in her bank account. I was like, whoa, she had never done that before. And especially not after I gave her $8,000, which is what happened. I gave her $8,000 and I paid for the taxes for the year before, and the rest of it was going to go to the taxes that year. And what happened? She was giving all of her money out to charity. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. And I had to take her checkbook. And then I had to help pay for some of the roof with my own money. And I got accused of stealing. That was crazy. It blew my mind. The investigator didn't even look at the deposits. I had to show them to her when she finally would talk to me. And the only reason why she talked to me was because I forced her into talking to me when she showed up at my house looking for my mother. And I was like, hold on. And she's like, no, I can't. I said, no, you can talk to me because it's about me. I said, these accusations are about me. And I told her, I was like, apparently you didn't even look at the deposits. And she didn't. What do you know? It's just, my girlfriend, then sends me to jail. I went to jail. Didn't even get a warning from the police. Didn't even get asked to go home. Nothing. They just put my ass in handcuffs and sent me to jail. And I was in and out of Williamson County, which is unheard of, with a PR bond for harassment. They don't do that on harassment. They keep you in there because they're afraid that the next step is typically somebody dying or whatever. And I beat that case. And my lawyer didn't do anything. No, I made a phone call. To a friend of mine that I'd made by the work I had done with law enforcement. Because the DA was saying I was a liar. And so all they had to do was tell him about my accolades. And what do you know? The following Monday, my case was dismissed with prejudice. And my lawyer tried to claim it. He tried to say that he is the one who got me off. And I told him he was full of shit. And then he threatened me with theft of service. It's a joke, man. The amount of people that turned on me was insane. I'd spent a long time making a good name for myself. I went to Washington, D.C. I was there. And when you try and tell people that, what they show on the news is not what happened. Oh, yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I was only just standing on the steps of the Capitol, right? I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. It blows my mind. But so anyways, I'm at the point now, guys, where I really do feel like we have to make a third party. There has to be a triumvirate. That's where I'm at. If you look at Rome, the history of Rome, Rome was its most stable during the triumvirate period, of Rome. It's because the triumvirate keeps any one party from getting too much power. Now we're going to be ran by the Republicans for a long time. I'm telling you, I didn't even vote this last election because I knew it was going to be a landslide. As soon as I saw that they said you were going to vote for Kamala Harris, they didn't give you another primary, I was like, there ain't no point even voting. This election was over before it began. And effectively her fucking career in politics is over. I can guarantee that. She probably made enough money, stealing from the American public. We need term limits. It's gotta happen. We have, what's his name? Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been our fucking senator for how many years? It's time to go, bro. It's time to go. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you've been in there for more than 2 terms, you need to go. Right now we have Congress is full of these old farts, man, who could croak at any minute, who are completely out of touch with the young people of this country, and quite frankly, they're just spending money. Just keep on spending more money. Let's send money over to the Ukraine. Yeah, we got people over here starving, but fuck it. Money. Ukraine needs the money. We shouldn't even have been there. Ukraine shouldn't even have been at war with Russia. But what do you know? What do they call those guys in office? The neocons. They just had to have their war. Got to keep that American war machine going. You know, we don't have to have a constant war to have a strong military. You know, I understand the need for combat veterans, okay? I understand that that's what really, really makes a military powerful, okay? And I get that. I think that having a base in Afghanistan did it good enough? Was good enough. I really think that we had some great combat veterans from that. But, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, a third generation warfare is not going to work. And that's what Russia will find out if they ever take back over the Ukraine. Ukraine's never going to be Russia's ever again. It's not. Because you can never win a third generation war. You just can't. You're not going to win it. We didn't win the one in Vietnam. You know? Anytime you have that, you're not going to win. We didn't win the one in Afghanistan. Nobody did. You know why? Because in third generation warfare, the people that you're fighting blend in with the population. That's what guerrilla tactics are. So you never know. And you can't just go around indiscriminately killing everybody. I mean, that's what the communists do. But then you have a Mao problem or a Stalin issue, and eventually your government collapses. You know, I mean, just like China, eventually the government's going to collapse. You know, I mean, there's no inspiration for growth in a communist country. There's not. And so once we pull all of our tech out of there, once we pull all of our manufacturing out of there, China's fucked. I mean, it's fucked. It's going to go back to being a poor, desolate wasteland like it used to be. You know? But you know, here I am. I'm gonna go fight for my countrymen. I feel like we really need a change, and like the drug war. You know, why are we still fighting that? That is our longest, most expensive running war, and we're never gonna win. You know, I remember when I got interviewed by the FBI to go help them out with certain things. You know, with helping them take down some extremist groups and things like that. I'll never forget when I went in for my interview, when I was interviewed by him, and I told him straight in the face, I said, not going to help you with any drugs, not going to help you with any biker gangs, and I'm not going to help you out with the Proud Boys. I said, don't even ask. And they were like, well, why not? I said, one, you're not going to win the drug war. I don't even know why we're fighting it, and I'm not going to contribute to that bullshit mess. You know, that's both sides are contributing to that mess. And I said, and quite frankly, that war created one of the biggest fucking problems that we've ever had worldwide. It literally created the single biggest crime syndicate the world has ever seen, called the Mexican cartels. Those cartels were created, and they were created by one thing, and that was the drug war. If we would have never done that, they would have never been created. You know, and then what's our other issue? The other issue that we have, the border. Border's a problem. We have sex trafficking going on. You know, we have modern day slavery happening, and we're focused on sending somebody to jail for drugs. You know, what blows my mind is I was reading an article about methamphetamine. Did you know that methamphetamine now, and this was 2 years ago that I read this article. I still have it. I'll see if I can put it in the description of this video for any of you guys who want to see this information. But methamphetamine production now rivals that of marijuana production coming out of California. So if everybody who does methamphetamine is a tweaker and they're crazy and they're going to rob you and then screw your wife or rape your wife or whatever, right? If they're going to do any of that, then why don't we see it happening more often? And why the hell are there thousands of tons of methamphetamine coming out of the Midwest? Everybody thinks it's coming over the border. No, that's cocaine. Okay, that's because cocaine has to come over the border because it's all from South America. Methamphetamine, guys, is being made right in our backyard. Using something called the P2P method. It's literally being made right in our backyard. And everybody still thinks that, it's coming over the border. It's not. And the stuff that is coming over the border is so laced with fentanyl that nobody wants it. Okay? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't think I've ever met anybody who does meth who's like gonna do any meth that's got fentanyl in it. I mean, one's an upper, one's a downer, right? Anybody who's doing an upper is probably not trying to go down. So, I mean, I just find that very odd that, you know, some guy thought that was going to work. You know, and we don't see any pseudoephedrine meth anymore. You know, and what's interesting is the further on we go, that it seems the more pure the meth gets. However, it's not pure anymore. As a matter of fact, what's interesting about that is that there's been something on our shelves for decades that if you were to test it, it would test positive for methamphetamine. It's called Vicks Vapo Rub. You know this little Vapo nasal thing that you get, their Vicks. That's methamphetamine. That's the isomer of methamphetamine. What's interesting about the P2P method is it creates 50% methamphetamine and 50% of the isomer. But yet they both test positive as methamphetamine. And so actually what we're seeing is half of the meth being made is actually methamphetamine. The other half is the isomer. And, you know, why is it still combined, you might ask me? Well, that's because it takes a very, very skilled chemist to separate the isomer from a molecule. And so being as how most people who are cooking this stuff out in, you know, the Midwest they're not chemists, obviously, or not very good ones anyways. But so my whole point with that discussion is if there's that much methamphetamine being made, then isn't it easy to say that it's probably being used on a level that would be close to marijuana? If that is the conclusion that we come up with, then I think it's safe to say that it's fucking retarded that it's illegal. Any of it. If you want if there's anything that needs to be illegal, it needs to be opiates. Okay? And they need to be highly monitored because they fucking kill people. Okay? You know, and benzodiazepines, I mean, downers are a big problem because they kill people. Or in the case with benzodiazepines, they cause you to be an epileptic, which kills people. We just need to really, really visit the drug war. And I think it's time to end it. There's only one way to beat the cartels. Outproduce them. That's it. You know, they could never compete with the corporate machine that is the United States because we just have the best production there is. We can outproduce anybody. So, anyways, I mean, there's just a lot of things to think about. You know, look at Portugal. Portugal didn't decriminalize, they legalized the use of drugs. And what happens? Addiction rates, crime rates go down by 80%. That's a big number. I mean, I think it's just time we look at what we're doing in this country, and we probably should self-reflect a little bit and ask, what should we do differently? You know, I think one of the biggest things with politics is we always focus on what we don't agree on, you know, and we fight about it. Why don't we focus on what we do agree on and make laws about that? Okay? Let's stop focusing on my team good, your team bad, because we're all on the same team. We all live in the same country. Okay? We're all on the same team, guys. You know, just because somebody votes Democrat doesn't make them a bad person. Just because somebody votes Republican doesn't make them a bad person. We're all on the same team. We're all here trying to live a good life together. You know, as long as we're divided, we're never going to go anywhere. And we're going to keep being taken advantage of. Our political leaders are going to keep having control over all of us. You know, united we stand, divided we fall. I mean, why do you think they'd go through such extreme lengths to keep us confused and fighting amongst each other? Well, that's because divide and conquer. You know, I mean, Julius Caesar knew that. He found that out. So that's what Rome's tactic was forever. Divide a place, conquer them. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. Give me a thumbs up there, help out with the algorithm. And it's good to be back. It's been a long time since I've been on this microphone. I got a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's talk.